So let me get this right. I'm all that stands between you and dessert, right? Is that right? I don't know if I've got any time left after my colleagues used up the 50 minutes, but I knew there was a reason they wanted me to go last. So Michelle Obama made this point about how silly it is when we ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? As she put it, as if becoming is something that just happens all at once. When you start thinking about retirement, you think about your own becoming, and those are some of the musings that I wanted to share today. So when Mark Zuckerberg in 2013 at the F8 conference started giving his big phrase that he's so famous for, all I could think was like, dude, I have been moving fast and breaking things like since you were being potty trained. And I mean that actually is factual because he was born in 1984. I showed up at Warren Hall in 1985. One of the first moving fast and breaking things I did was to illegally install a satellite dish on the top of Warren Hall, much to the horror of everybody I tell this to who's in the administration today. And I had a wire that went down in through my, why would I do this? It's because I wanted to I was teaching futures and options trading. I wanted to get real-time prices into my office so that my students could use this simulation program that I had a student build to do real-time trading. I thought, wouldn't it be great to trade with fake money and learn how fast you can lose money in the commodities markets? So I did a bunch of other crazy stuff. I turned the Warren 401 into a trading floor, and all of the things that I was thinking about were intended to be engaging and interactive. That was really the focus of everything else. I wanted to help students build memory palaces. Now, memory palaces, if you're not familiar with the term, is something you'll hear memory experts will talk about it. You know, those crazy people that have, like, they can say pi to the 500th decimal. Memory palaces are ways of trying to remember things. And it came up in the Sherlock Holmes series that Holmes would be able to retrieve these pieces of information because he built this incredible memory palace. I really glommed onto that because I'm not great at memorizing. I'm really bad at memorizing. And so I have built, as a teacher, I've aimed my work at helping people build these memory palaces. I wanted deep learning that would last, that people could remember later on, not just something that came up in class. And then something crazy, this is my first magical moment, something crazy happened to me, which is my colleagues decided they were going to give me an endowed chair in entrepreneurship. We can talk later about why they might have done that, but it was such a surprise to me. The Bruce F. Failing family had given this gift in the honor of their father. And Bruce F. Failing Sr. had worked with Wendell Earl, was a faculty member in our department. And because of the kindness of Wendy and the generosity of the Failings, suddenly I had this amazing opportunity. With this opportunity came some responsibility because I did not know anything about entrepreneurship when I started. So to fill in those gaps, I went on a journey of collecting stories. And I talked to people all over the country, sometimes people from around the world, about entrepreneurship. And I got this idea, what if I could bring these things into class? Wouldn't that be cool? Now, at the time, technology was making it possible to digitize video, right? Possible, but not easy. Well, we're talking about the 1990s, right? So you could digitize video. And so I packed up my little video camera and went and talked to many folks. I'm going to play just about 10 seconds of a video that I took at that time, which my team that is all here today are going to be horrified by because the framing is wrong, the mic isn't on right, and anything, but here's one of my original pieces.
Best way that I know of thinking in terms of financing is, one, think in terms of concentric circles. The closer in people are to you, and the better they know you, the more likely they are to invest in you.
Okay, so this idea of concentric circles, and you can see the voice is underpowered, the thing is not in focus, he's not in the right place, but it worked in my class. I took videos like the one I did with Kevin and cut it into pieces and burned it to CDs and took it into class. And believe me, taking them to class was not that easy. And I know that Jay, who's in the audience, can vouch for this. It involved a cart, a desktop, not a laptop, a desktop computer, a 1 gig drive, which at the time cost $5,000, a projector, because they didn't have projectors in the classroom, and then we had to tape speakers onto the side of the cart, right? So we'd bring this cart into class, and some of the carts had, like vaulted walkways, and we would try to balance it. It was crazy. But, I liked it, and it was good. It worked. So it was clunky, but I thought it was super effective. By the end of the 1990s, I was able to play all kinds of videos and storytelling. So after a while, I ended up having a book of CDs. Like every person I talked to, I'd have a book of CDs. And Jay Flugel, who was working with me at the time, said, you should organize these things by topic, not just by person. And I'm like, oh, that totally makes sense, because it will help me not have to swap everything out. So Jay went about doing that. Meanwhile, the librarians were coming to me and saying, where's your backup? And I'm like, what do you mean backup? What? They're like, what if it burns up? What if it breaks? What if somebody steals it? And I'm like, what world do you live in that you're so worried about this? But I thought, I've got to get serious. I've got to get serious about putting this stuff into some kind of database. And relational databases were coming big at that time. And so this is my next magical moment. And that is when my team got formed. And I could never have done this with the failing endowment. It really opened up a whole world to me. So Jamie, Kirsten, and Manuel and I have been working together for years. They've really done, they've accompanied me on my crazy journeys, done everything I've asked them to do, and it was really just an incredible moment. So with them, I was able to put all the clips online. For the first time, I could share with people, which was really fun, and the videos started getting better. So here's an example of a better video.
Often the best buyers or the best investors of your business are friends and family, but I use a different term, concentric circles. The closer the concentric circle to you, the more likely it is that people will buy your business.
Okay, and then it got even better.
Put together a business plan, that key element, that ambassador of your business, that thing that represents you so much in your early stage career, how to bring in investors on levels of sophistication.
Okay, what is he going to say next? Concentric circles, right? So the technology was getting better. I was learning how to interview more. Kevin was still saying the same thing, which was very valuable, and telling the story of Soba, the beverage company, and how he participated in that company. So all of these were put into this collection that we called eClips, and you'll see many on the film strip. You'll see many players, some of whom are in the room. But it became hundreds, and then it became thousands, and pretty soon we had this huge collection of clips. And we started getting interest from people outside Cornell. Oh, you have all this content. Content is king and all that. And so in 2008, we spun a company out, and now the clips live in the company that it's part of the Prendismo collection and still working there today. Meanwhile, back on campus, I was getting this reputation for being kind of a guru of technology. But I kept jumping up and down and saying, technology alone is not enough. And I did notice that many years later, Steve Jobs said the same thing. Somehow these guys are just following me. But technology alone is not the same. It depends on story. Story is so important. Stories is what helps us build these memory palaces, and that's what I used to do that. Stories help us retrieve information. When you do storytelling, you're stimulating the brain in a lot more places than if you're just doing fact, just delivering facts. And in fact, you could even produce some oxytocin in your brain by looking at character-driven stories. So I thought that was a good sign of what's kind of addictive about storytelling. The brain keeps these in a location. That's what the mind palace is all about, right? So now my teaching became intensely focused on experiential learning, engaged in interactive learning, putting students into the story. And it was so much more fun than putting together a bunch of boring PowerPoints. Students just aren't empty vessels. They have to construct their own knowledge, just as all of you have constructed your own knowledge. A lot of you who have talked to me over the years probably can't remember some kind of jargon thing I said, but I'm pretty sure you can remember what a concentric circle is all about, and you probably remember Kevin very well as well. So thinking about this, all of this brought me to another insight that most of this is about all of you and what you've done for me. My first TAs, Lynn and Karen, sort of pulled me through that horrible corporate finance class they made me teach at the beginning. And then I've had the opportunity to watch the journeys of many of you here, and many of you shared your stories with me. And when I think about, I think I'm being effective as a teacher and advisor, I link it back to things that you did for me and gifts that you kind of lent me with your stories. Now, I'm not going to lie. Sorry, I'm out of space. I'm not going to lie. Classroom teaching has become more and more difficult. Students are distracted. And I had this experience years ago. I started teaching in the Cornell prison education program. And what I found in this maximum security prison were students who were attentive, grateful, respectful, and really motivated in a maximum security prison. But what it led me to think when I got back out on the outside at the end of class and breathed that fresh air, I had an appreciation for freedom, and I also had an appreciation for how little distraction there was there and how much distraction is in our world, right? Our attention spans have come down to nothing. So my grandchildren are just like the kids in here. They play on their mobile phones, and they do they listen to podcasts, and they watch videos, and they do all kinds of things. And when they get to college, they're going to be doing even more. Gen Z educators have got to start thinking about this stuff. So even though technology has made so much possible, I see this dark side as well. It's really hard to teach in a classroom today. It's very, very challenging. But the secret weapon has not changed that much, because humans, as all of us are really hooked into stories, I think it's part of our evolutionary background, and we all still love that stories. Even in technology, it's Instagram stories, right? And Facebook is all about sharing and stories. So I think if educators can put the students in the middle of that story, they can get them to sit up and notice. And by the way, storytelling is not just for entrepreneurship. My husband, Tom Owens, who's here, surprised me by coming here, by the way. It's very shocking. He's a molecular biophysicist, right? And so his subject matter is quite different from mine. He's teaching about physics, biology, chemistry, math, and what he does is he weaves that all together in a storyline. And he teaches students about how to make it a story so they can retrieve facts when they need them. This stuff works in all fields. Because of the failing chair, the talented people that work with me, and all of you, I've really had fun telling stories. Now, I still use digital stories from eClips, but I've added some new tools that I wish other educators would think about. And those are simulation, I do a ton of real-time polling, which is very fun and very, very interactive with an audience. And then some of you have come into my class through Zoom or Skype. And I also have students listen to podcasts outside of class. And then we have a common story that we can debate and use to sort of facilitate the learning that I want to have happened. So the focus remains, I'm helping them build their memory palaces. Meanwhile, my team evolved to the Dyson Media Innovation Group. And working together, we added Erin Kay, who's here, to our team. That was a wonderful addition. And we started doing other ways of telling stories. We have animations, and we have podcasts, and we've done digital story case studies, all of which is at bearinmind.cornell.edu. So you should go check it out. But then comes along my third magical moment. And that moment was when Paul Krauss, who's the CEO of eCornell, walks through my door. And he knows that I'm kind of ticked off at eCornell because I had some bad experiences with him early on. So he's making nice with me because he wants me to do some programming with him. And he says, I was a graduate of your program, and I'm really sorry I never took your class. But he said, I had this amazing woman who had a simulation. She had real-time prices, commodity prices, and we got to trade. And I lost all my money in the first month. And I'm like, Paul, that was me. So think about that. Paul didn't remember me, but he really remembered trading in that trading simulation program. He lost a ton of money. He's a really innovative entrepreneurial guy. And he decided to direct his work towards ed tech instead of the commodity analysis. So I figured I did some good there. But anyway, Paul talked me into doing some work with eCornell. And together with some really talented instructional designers, I had a chance to build 2 certificate programs for women in leadership. And more recently, we launched the Bank of America Institute for Women's Entrepreneurship at Cornell. And this is a completely online program that we just graduated our first inaugural class of students from. It's very exciting. And for the first time, I had a chance to scale this storytelling stuff, this memory palace building. We are going to put 3,000 students through this program in the next year, and we have 7,000 people on a waiting list, and we haven't ever done any marketing yet. So I just feel like it's amazing. The weird thing for me is now I'm the clip. It's very weird. But I learned very quickly, you're not going to be talking for 20 minutes on a video like I am tonight. You're going to be interspersed with activities and discussions and projects, right? And so the same methods that I used in the classroom sort of started to translate, building those memory palaces. Becoming doesn't end when you're retiring. Just as your learning didn't end when you left Cornell. And I think my advice tonight to all of us is amidst the chaos of life, everybody who I've talked to said, oh, things are great, but I'm so busy. So this digital deluge that we face every day, you have to tend to that memory palace. I think all of us need to think about that. And some of the stories you add to that palace will be in movies and podcasts and YouTube videos and Instagram stories and maybe even eClips from the Prindismo collection. But don't forget to look around you like I got to do all these years and really collect those stories and wisdom from each other. Your stories just taught me how to be a better teacher, a better advisor, a better human. And whether it was conversations I had with Jay and later with Romy about, you really need to understand these technologies, Romy introduced me to the app world. Whether it was the fortuitous shoot where I met Jamie or the time I went to visit Kirsten to see her new baby and talked about how could we work together. Ed and I spent many, many hours in the old lounge of Warren Hall talking about his entrepreneurial ventures. And I've had so many long conversations with Scott Belsky and Shaibia and Stephanie and Mikey and Zach and Nabiha, and like all of you have contributed to my memory palace. And there were business projects done by Jaff and Ryan, and many of you have contributed to the eClips, like Caroline and Caitlin and Seth, and those who have been just my mentors over the years, like Susan and Angela. And please forgive me if I didn't call your name out, because all of you are just incredible, in helping me build my memory palace. So, final words. I encourage all of us to do the same as what this quote is from Jung. You know, learn as much as we can from everybody that we meet, and let those stories fill our expanding palaces of our minds. Thank you.